Hello everyone, this is Gwydion, and today's video I'm going to show you how to play Delve 2nd Edition, or at least walk you through the Delve 2nd Edition module that I converted into Fantasy Grounds with the permission of the author FeralGamersInc. So Delve 2nd Edition is a dungeon exploring fantasy RPG. The best way I think I can describe it is it seems somewhat rules light, but it also seems crunchy in terms of offering a fair bit of depth. Feels like something you can pick up quickly and play in an evening. You can find Delve 2nd Edition on DriveThruRPG. It's pay what you want, so please support the author and go grab the PDF. He was kind enough, again, to let me convert this and release it to all of you for free. There are a number of supplements that you can pick up. I'll put links to those in the video so you can see them. And I'll also separately do a character creation video. I want to split this up a little bit because this may be a little bit long. Check out some of the other games that FeralGamersInc has on DriveThru, like Ghost Recon. And they also just released a Kickstarter that already funded that is, I believe, a spinoff of Delve 2nd Edition. And it's called Stranded. And it's a sci-fi version. So check that out on Kickstarter. And I'll post a link in the video as well. So all you need to play this in Fantasy Grounds is Morecore. So the Morecore rule set. For those of you that don't know, it is free, but it is not a rule set that comes automatically when you do your updates of Fantasy Grounds. So make sure you go to the forums, download Morecore, and I'll put a link to the thread that I'll start to show the game, and it'll have everything you need in that thread to play. So very quickly, I'll kind of run through everything that I can here. Credits, obviously, published by FeralGamersInc. Maps, there's some other credits here. B. Simon Smith, Nikki Lassard, Gwydion did the conversion, and some other artwork that's in here. The artwork is actually pretty fabulous. Kind of a cool note, if you haven't played Delve, it does assume you know a number of things. You've role-played before, I love it. You can read, it's always good. And the game is yours to do what you like, and the rules are a guide. I think that's important because there are a few places in here that I found myself saying, well, how do you do that? And I think the answer is do it how you want. Do it how it feels right to you. By the time I post this video, I will have the link embedded into the module for the video. And also, I will have a link in the module to my Discord channel. So if you have any issues or just want to ask me a question about Delve, you can join my Discord channel and ask me anything you want. So the way Delve starts is you're shipwrecked on an island. So I'm not going to read through all this. That's not the purpose of the video, but it's kind of a cool concept. You and your party are shipwrecked and you kind of wake up on a deserted island, wherever you want it to be. You begin your search and basically you roll a die and you roll 100-sided dice. And there's a number of different things that you can find. And some of this is up to the DM. You have a magic ring, for example, that you roll. What kind of magic ring? How many charges? They give you some general guidelines, but make it what you want. After you search your pockets, you kind of get into a little bit of character creation. And the way the module is written, which is cool, is it's a little more stream of consciousness. And actually, he creates a party and runs them through a mini adventure. And I'll kind of show you that a little bit. But this, who are you? This kind of gets into the stat and character creation. So you decide on your attributes. You can see it's how it's spelled out here. There are 5 attributes that spell out Delve. They'll be pretty familiar to those of you that have played other role-playing games. Dexterity, pretty obvious. Endurance, it really takes the place of your normal strength stat, and stamina. So it's used for everything you can think of that would be strength and stamina-based. Learning is a combination of intelligence and wisdom, vitality, health, and resistance. And that does go into determining your hit points. And then empathy, which is a kind of a compassion and charisma combination. What I find interesting is you do start with an average-based attribute. So all of these will be 10. Then you have 10 points. And there's different ways you can create characters. You can do it at quick character creation or advanced. If you do advanced, then basically you start with 10, then you have 10 points to distribute with no starting attribute higher than 15. And this is a D100 system, so what you would do once you've spent your points whatever that attribute base is, you multiply by 3 for a percentage number. And that's going to be important because most of your rolls, you need to roll under that percentage. So the example here, if you have dexterity and you bump it to 13, 13 times 3 is 39. So 39% will be your base stat. So it's pretty neat. I haven't played a D100 system before, but it looks like it's pretty cool. You have a quick creator, so if you do this instead of the advanced, then it kind of walks through exactly how you would roll. So you wouldn't use the numbers I just gave you as a starting base. You actually roll for your attributes and some derived hit points, stats like hit points and magic points, etc. Advanced, again, then this time you will do the attributes like I had previously described. After you go through that, the second step is to determine your race. And you do have 6 races. Oops, let me go back to that for a second. Sorry about that. Quick creator, advanced. So you do have a race, and I'll show you that in a second. Then every race has magic. In this beginning module, this basic rulebook, there are only spells for the mage and the wizard, or sorry, the mage and the witch, excuse me. But he did release a companion that I believe adds spells for warrior and rogues. So that's kind of cool. So once you get through the initial steps, then you have 6 races to choose. So this is a really cool artwork. Like I said, I really think he did a great job. Each race comes with its own kind of bumps to attributes and stats. So an elf has a bump of 10% to dexterity, tells you how to create your derived stats like hit points and encumbrance. So you take your vitality base, multiply it by 2. Magic points tells you how many you start with and your pace or your movement. You also have traits. And I have not created complete pre-gen characters, but just real quickly, and I might do that later, I did create, and what you will do when you open the module, you'll see pre-gen characters. You can click on the up arrow and you'll find it. I've already loaded ours. So I won't go through this. I'll go through this more in the character creation video, but here are the base stats. The modifiers, which relate to your skills, these are only here as kind of a reference point on what it means to be untrained, known, trained, expert, master. So I'll walk through that during the character creation video. Some skill rolls. I did some basic untrained rolls, some attack rolls, and some tests, which kind of, if you know D&D, any of the versions, you'll think of them as saving throws. So you do have different tests that you would do, endurance test, learning test, vitality tests. So again, I'll walk through that during our video. Traits. So I did try to put all of these, if you go to your abilities tab, or abilities button, I should say, I did create abilities for all of the races. And then as we get into skills, you'll see some skills as well, and some both class skills, general skills. But real quickly, so if you go into, actually, let me move into the elf real quick. Elven abilities. So you'll see here, you have night vision, balance, and animal friend. You also have a race enemy that I put down here. And you could open these and drag and drop them on your character sheet, and it gives you the brief description. Where possible, I created effects, so make sure to open the effect tab. So let's look at balance. So again, these are only going to be informational, but at least you can drag on your character sheet, put them in the combat tracker, and kind of have a basic description of what they do. I created roles where possible. So if you look for abilities, this one I didn't classify, or actually, so in this case, yeah, I just have abilities, so racial enemies, elven. And again, I'll show you these roles when we get to character creation, but this does have a role. You can place it right in your character sheet, target your enemy, and it works. So pretty cool, some basic automation. You also have a kind of an optional scar and deformity table. So if you do want to pull up scars and deformity and roll for it, and in this case, this character would have some kind of skin rash. So you can figure out if you want to add that. So there's Dwarven race. I won't go through all of those, but Dwarven, Halfling, again, I really like the imagery. Half-Elf, and Half-Elf has both some human and elf stats. So you'll recognize night vision from the elf, and there's some other stats like brute and conduit that are from the human, half orc, and human. And there's more races in the companion that he just put out. And again, I'll put links in the description. Choosing a class. So there are 3 main classes and 2 subclasses. Each class has a set of 3 unique skills and a choice of a unique ability. We'll walk through that again in the next video. Choose 3 extra skills from another class so you can kind of mix and match and make your character what you want. So you can pick some other classes. And they also receive 2 general skills. So each character class has 8 skills to start. It talks about leveling up, and then it gets into the skill descriptions. So as I understand it, you do know, or at least you can try any of these skills, but unless you pick them to begin with, they would be untrained. So you'd get a penalty of minus 20%. So that feels pretty cool to me that you can kind of do anything. However, you're going to be at a pretty significant disadvantage. Tells you the type of skills, like in this case, athletics is a general skill, and it's also based on your dexterity. So it's going to start with your dexterity score. And if you're not trained in it, you'd subtract 20%. If you're trained in it, you would add 10%. I've created in the abilities tab, general skill. I kind of have all the different skills. So general, here are all the general skills, as well as a brief description. Now, fight and ranged are the skills that you're going to need to do melee attacks and ranged weapon attacks. So remember, you start with 2 general skills, which is kind of interesting. So you can take any of these. Maybe if you're a rogue, maybe you start with fight or ranged and maybe stealth. But it gives you the general description. And in addition to these, I did create on the rolls a skills spell or skills section. So all of these, again, have their own. So if I go to fight, and I'll show this to you in more detail, but there is a dice code called roll under, and it's a 1d100 X00. What that means is you're going to have to unlock this, and I'll show you in the character creation video, but then you'll change this X00 to whatever your final score is for fight. So if that final score is 60, you'd change it to 60, you'd lock it, and then when you roll this, it'll actually roll. And if you're under 60 in your roll, it'll show you a success. So, a little bit of automation, pretty cool. And the way this RPG works is if you do fight and you hit, then you have a damage roll that I can show you in a bit. So all of the skills are coded. And again, this kind of shows you all the different skills and a little description. And then you get into your classes, choosing a class. So magic users, the 2 classes are the mage. And again, it shows you some of your starting skills. You receive the following skills: arcane, casting, and meditation at trained. So you get to bump them by 10%. And you get 3 other, either general or class-based. So 2 general schools and 3 skills that are general or some other class-based at known. So that's cool. They're not necessarily trained, but you don't get a significant penalty against them. All your abilities, and again, your mage abilities can be found if you click on abilities. Mage abilities here. So you can drag these under your character, and I'll show you that in another video. And you also have mage skills. So again, you saw these before. And finally, as you get down here, you receive bonuses. So in addition to your basic hit points, you get additional 1d6 and additional 1d10 magic points. Spells. So I do have all the spells in here, mage spells. And this shows you, the way this works is a point system. So you get a certain number of magic points, and then it takes a certain amount of magic points to cast each spell. So it's kind of a unique take. You don't have a certain number of spells you cast of each level, but it's based on kind of your mana points or magic points. So I've got your spells in here that give you the basic description of the spell. And where possible, going back to your roles tab, I've created roles that you can drag and drop. So again, we'll get into that in the character creation. You'll see in a lot of these, my roles are damage DR. What that means is when you target someone in the combat tracker, this will roll your damage, but it'll subtract from it the defense of the character, or in this case, Delve uses a stat or a description called PT, which is protection. So it's basically a protection point level that armor has a certain level of protection point. So you roll your damage, but it subtracts the armor from it and automatically applies the damage. So pretty cool. So this is all of your mage spell leveling descriptions. Which here, it's actually really cool imagery. Love the staff, all the tattoos. Love the gothic red eye makeup. So I think it's, again, I really have said it several times already, but I really like the art in this. So same idea. Again, all the automation you've got for rogues, you've got a thief. And again, all kinds of starting skills. You do have magic points, but again, in this module, you won't see thief spells. But I think those are added in the Delve Companion that you can pick up on Drive Through RPG. The Scout is more of a tracker, and because I would say it's more like a ranger, and it kind of is, but you also have, you've got your basic fighter, and then you also have a hunter. So it's cool. You have kind of a couple of different takes on maybe what's traditionally a ranger character. All right, so then once you kind of get to that level, you search the beach and you might find some more things. So you'd roll on this table. Maybe over time, I will put links in here for this, but you do have different items that you can find amongst the wreckage. And then into the caves is kind of a cool section. This is where the author, I won't go through all of this, but they actually take a party and they describe how to play the game by kind of giving you a sample adventure. So he talks through entering a cave. You're on a beach, you find a cave, and now you're going through a cave to try to figure out where it leads. And as he goes through that description, he really describes how to play the game. So I'll let you find that, because that's part of the fun, I think, of this. But you kind of go through the cave, actually. Let me get back to this. And it is a lengthy, I only scrolled down a bit, but you kind of have a very lengthy description that goes through how to use skills. They fight a quick battle. And as a GM, you might want to create a basic little adventure like this, which is not included in here. You could just create any map yourself and make it happen. This is more about the rule set itself, but it kind of goes through modifiers. This is a really cool take. As you're in the game, if you just feel like instead of D&D 5e where you have advantage, disadvantage, if you think something is a little bit harder than it should be, then use a -10 modifier to your D100 roll. If there's an environmental issue, like it's really dark and the character doesn't have dark vision, or maybe there's ice, and I tried to include these in the modifier button. So you have most of these that correspond to all of these description here. And basically you just click on them, it'll show up in the modifier button, and then do your roll. Talk about surprised, opposed rolls. So again, just kind of everything to do with how to play the system, criticals and fumbles, a kind of a unique take on it. A little more complicated than normal. Basically, if you get 10% of your total percentage chance, then that's a crit. So I'll let you read through that. Same thing for a fumble. And it's a good way, the more you progress in a particular skill, actually the less chance you have to fumble and the more chance you have to crit. So it actually, I've never seen that before, and it's pretty cool. Talks about magic, talks about a goblin attack, combat, and a little bit about initiative, and I have coded initiative in. Initiative's a D10 system. You actually take the first number from your dexterity percentage, so showing you the character sheet again real quick. I've got an initiative roll on here. So it's a D10 plus, in his case, 3, and the only reason I coded in the 3, and you can unlock it and change it here, is his dexterity. I put all the stats at a base of 10 times 3, so that's 30. So if this were to be 42, then you would add 4 to your initiative roll. And then you can just roll initiative. And there you go. And if you were in the combat tracker, it'd give you a 7, which is horrible. Well, actually a D10. It's not horrible. All right. Ranged is your range skill. You have some other ability like call shots. This was a really neat feature. If you fire into melee and you miss, instead of saying you get a negative or it's disadvantage or what have you, you hit the nearest other character engaged in melee. So I guess as a DM, if you have a character that's both an ally and an enemy, you can choose as a DM, do you want to be harsh and just make it the ally? Or do you want to give them a little bone and say, well, you missed him, but you actually hit somebody else that you didn't target? More description on target attacks, et cetera. And basically, a little more about armor and how that works, injuries and healing. There's some cool effects that I've tried to code in effects and give you a little bit of something to drag and drop on your character. But you have a bleeding effect, stun, and poisoned. And then it talks a little bit about how death works in here. Once you get through all this and you find your way out, you make it out of the cave and to Cragbaron, which is really the island you're on. There's also a cool supplement called, I think it's Adventurer's Guide to Cragbaron, or I'm sorry if I have that wrong, but I'll put links in the video. But again, it keeps kind of a narrative as part of the dialogue, and it talks to you and explains to you, or at least the character that you meet explains to you that there's a town that's not too far away called Wreckhaven. And Wreckhaven has a tavern, of course, because every good town has a tavern. It's a little bit of a map here that shows a few things that are in Wreckhaven. You could certainly put more. You're the DM, GM, you could do what you want. A Mages Guild, a tavern, a blacksmith, traders. And a little more description on the events, monster levels. So this is another way for the author to give you more information. Blacksmith. So it gets into trading. And this is where it talks a little bit about crafting, how to do that, and what it takes to craft and what skins it takes. And here's where it gets into protection points. It's abbreviated as PT. You'll see I updated my combat tracker defense to say PT. And so again, if you do a damage of or the goblin does 8 damage against you and you're wearing leather armor, the combat tracker will do this for you, or the automation in Fantasy Grounds. But you do 8 damage minus 3 leather, and you get 5 of actual damage that gets through. So there's some cool mechanics I would encourage you to read. Here are the armor tables. If you open your equipment tab, you'll see I've tried to put everything in here so you have all your armor. So if you go to, say, hard leather, a little bit of notes on what it is. It's boiled leather strengthened with studs. The cost is 8. The cost is the sale cost. The protection is 4, so you're going to have to put that on your character, but easy enough. Hit points, I'll let you read about that, but armor does have hit points. And there's a cool feature that if you decide to have your armor take the brunt of the damage, so if, let's say that the attack did 10 points to you, or let's say it was a roll of, I don't know, 14. And 14 minus 4 would be 10 points of damage to you. You don't want to take it. You have the ability of taking all of that damage against the hit points, but it might break your armor. And in this case, if it's 12 or more, it completely ruins your armor, but you take no damage. Pretty cool. Components, this kind of shows you if you're actually going to craft how many components it takes. So anyway, you can drag and drop that on your character sheet. More cool imagery. Weapons. Shoot, I'll have to correct that later. See, that's a small S. But there's a number of weapons and parrying and discussion. There's a cool table about how parrying is more effective. Obviously, if you have heavier weapons, if you decide to try to parry with a weapon. But if you parry with a light weapon, it might actually break that weapon. So again, it's kind of light but crunchy. Here are all the basic weapons in the game that are melee weapons. If you look at your equipment tab and you go to melee weapons, you'll see all of the weapons are listed in here. So let's just pull a mace. Yeah, the costs. And in this case, I don't know that I did this for the ranged weapons, but you can see the rolls are right here too. I've already got all the rolls. So you've got the damage DR 1d8. So you can pull this into your inventory just to track it. And then you can pull the roll onto your character sheet. I'll show you that later. So all the rolls, again, I do have all the ranged weapon rolls and the melee weapon rolls. And also, ranged weapons here. All right. So there are also some tags that you can look at. I don't know that I've coded these yet, but maybe in an update, I will code these. Depending on the weapon, you might have poison damage. You might have sawtooth means it does some additional damage. If it's a magical effect, like these are standard tags. So blunt is -2 damage, light is +1. These are magical tags. So if your weapon is blessed, it gets +2 against undead. Here are all the ranged weapons. Pretty cool functionality too. A throwing axe, you look at your endurance ×2 to determine your range. So it does take into account how strong you are. Shields, block percentages, and again, I have those detailed out in items as well. Ranged ammo. So again, how much it costs, and I do have those, I believe, all in the item list as well. AP armor piercing, so that's pretty neat. And weapon components. So what does it take to make each of these? Talks a little bit about properties like bolas don't do any damage, but they can grapple someone. Talks about concealed weapons, ranges, and some explanation on ranges. Traders, not something I'll get into, but this does go into all the gear, and it gives you an idea of how common should they be. Should they be able to find them on the beach or in a cave or in a starting adventure that you create? Maybe if they're uncommon, not as much. And then rare, even less so. Encumbrance, I haven't looked too much at the encumbrance rules, but if you look at the equipment tab and look at gear, books, and maps, so let's just pull out climbing gear. So I do have the cost and I do have the weight. So the encumbrance is the weight. In this case, it's a rarity of R, which is rare. So if you want to use encumbrance, you can use encumbrance. There's some cool lighting functionality that I glossed over, but you might want to look at because it's a neat feature on how he tracks the lighting and how long, say, a lantern or a torch lasts. And then some books and maps. Carrying it also encumbrance, it goes into the encumbrance rules. I've never been huge on encumbrance. For me as a DM, I don't tend to track it that much, but if you want to, it's here. Mages Guild, so it talks a little bit about magic and magic trading. There's also ingredients and different ingredients that can make healing potions, antidotes, tells you how common they are. And I don't recall if I've coded those yet. And if I haven't, I will do it next time. Because I would like to get this out and get people to start using it. Yeah, I don't think I've done that yet. So I'm going to have to do that. Thought I had. Well, that'll give me something else to do. Because I've done most of these, but I don't think I've created that yet. So I'll do the ingredients maybe in the next update. Magic How To talks about casting, and again, the magic points. There are fumbles and criticals, so there's kind of a cool casting chart. Casting fumbles, all the potentials that could happen if you fumble. And the spells. So getting into the spells, I've organized these by level, and I also put a little note in on how many magic points that it costs for each spell. And it goes up to 5th level. Same for the witch spells. And again, you do have rolls where possible. And Tavern. This is a little more, I think this is getting into the City of Stench. City of Stench. So look, this is more discussion of another city that you might be able to get to. It's just more detail on if you travel. I think this is like a little more advanced travel away from Wreckhaven. So you might want to create a few adventures near and around Wreckhaven. And then when they want to go further, you can go further. There is a kind of I don't know if I'd call it a mini adventure, but there is a tunnel system underneath Wreckhaven. And I did both include the map as well as all of the locations. So in some of these, if I get to the right one, there are encounters built in. So there's an encounter of undead. So there's, you could use that if you want, or even update a little bit and use it as a starting adventure, some treasure tables and some other things. So these are just all the journal entries of the caves. So there's a few encounters. Tentacled Horror. And after you get through the tunnels, there's also, this is a super cool picture. This is a demon Gagathron. Don't know a whole lot about him, but there is a description here you can read. And no one really knows much about him, but gives all his attributes and what kind of sword he has. I've not created him out, but I did put in the entire general bestiary. So this goes through the monster abilities and talks to you a little bit about what, if you see any of these on the monsters, then you can kind of see what they do. Monster levels. This is a really cool picture. I love that. It looks like maybe a good-sized dwarf that just cut off the head of a troll or something. So the whole bestiary is in here. So here's an Ankeg, the description, information about the Ankeg, and if you click on the NPC link, I've got drag and drop characters that you can drag into the combat tracker. There you go. The attributes, these show as roles. They're really I just coded them as just trying to show you what their stats are. You probably won't use these much. These are true roles. So you can roll for like perception awareness. And then as you fight, so if it's attacking you, and you can see in this case, that's a good example of a roll. His target, he needed to get to a 47 was his awareness. He rolled a 66, so that is not a success. That would have said 1 if it isn't a success. So if he attacks and fights you, in that case, his target was a 47. He got a 5. So since he's under, that was a success. Then he rolls his damage. So these are all coded properly. Notes on the back if you want to break this out and show the image to your players. So a little more detail about the, and also you'll see I did code all of these. Oh, sorry. All of these images have their own tokens. All of these NPCs. So it's pretty cool. Basilisk, Blinkhound, Chaos Beast, Chimeria. I can only imagine that's because of some copyright. Dragon. And look at that picture. I love that. Hairy mother. Fungus. Ghost. Goblin. It's a goblin. Harpy. Minotaur. Mound Horror. Night Wraith. And I'm sure there'll be more over time. I think there's a few more in some of the supplements. Ogre, Ooze. Gotta have an Ooze. Orc. Ratling. Shrieker. Skeleton. Spider. Tentacled Horror. A troll. Look at that guy. That guy's nasty. And a zombie. And that's it. So pretty much everything you need to basically start and play the game. I'm trying to think if I missed anything. Images, a lot of tables. So make sure you look at all these. Tons of tables, books, treasures, searching pockets, NPCs. You saw the encounters, equipment, a bunch of roles, tokens. All these tokens are included when you download, so don't forget to look for them, but they'll be in the NPCs. So I think there's 24 tokens for all the monsters. So look, guys, that probably went a little longer than most of my videos, but I will do a character creation video next. But please support the author. I really hope you enjoy this. Hit me up on the forums or on Discord if you do play this and tell me how it went. So until next time, I hope to see you around on the Fantasy Grounds on the Fantasy Grounds forums, and happy gaming all.